It's Monday. Sorry, I don't know why I'm moving so weird. But it's great to be here. It's Monday. I'm Sarah Dallal, and I'm really excited to have Curtis join me today. So I was with him on Friday, and he's with me today on Monday, and we made it to 30k subscribers.
We did. Oh, what a milestone! 30,000 subscribers.
I know, pretty wild. Actually, I just want to make myself like more level with you. That's better. Is it? Yeah, I was like super high. No, 30,000 subscribers. It's actually insane. I know I said it, I called it when I joined Turn Left in January that this year will be the year we do 100k by the end of the year. So I really feel it.
Yeah, I mean, just triple our numbers in a few months. But
Yeah.
well, like, you know, we've hit milestones we didn't expect to hit before.
Yeah, it was like what you said earlier. You know, 10 sometimes means 3 million. So I guess we all count wrong sometimes. Anyway. Welcome back. Anyway, really good to have you guys. Coming up on tonight's show, billionaire backs. Sorry. Okay. Billionaire backs fascists. Musk's shocking speech in London. Far right are silent after Sikh woman's attack. Former Boris Johnson secretary defects to reform. And Starmer aide resigns over sexual texts about Diane Abbott. You know the rules. I don't know, I forgot to put this part in the script, but make sure you guys comment and like and share as much as possible. We have such a great community that I know you guys are bloody brilliant at it. So yeah, we'll get to your comments later on in the show. But on to our first story. Over 100,000 people gathered in London on Saturday for the Unite the Kingdom rally organised by far-right activist Stephen Yaxley Lennon, otherwise known as Tommy Ten Names Robinson, in what's being called one of Britain's largest far-right protests in decades. Tech billionaire Elon Musk made a surprise video appearance on giant screens at the rally, delivering a controversial speech that drew pretty loud cheers from the crowd. Let's break down the things he says, shall we?
If this continues, that violence is going to come to you. You will have no choice. You're in a fundamental situation here where whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you.
Violence is coming to us. Is he legitimizing the idea of a violent uprising? I think so. I mean, I'm going to break this video up in parts because it was a whole, 20-minute segment that I don't want to subject you guys to. But it's really chilling to watch and to listen to. And it's hard to read that as anything other than incitement to violence. Remember, by the way, this rally wasn't entirely peaceful. We saw projectiles thrown, flares ignited, and police attacked. Don't let the right tell you that only 25 people were arrested. That's still 25 too many in my eyes. Musk's rhetoric seemingly poured fuel on an already volatile situation. Let's look at another clip.
The government can obviously use whatever powers are available to suppress the people. And so I really think there's got to be a change of government in Britain. And you can't, we don't have another 4 years or whenever the next election is. It's too long. Something's got to be done. There's got to be a dissolution of parliament and a new vote.
Pretty dangerous. A dissolution of parliament. He's emboldening people here, stoking real visceral reactions from them with this rhetoric, and Tommy Ten Names going, well, come on crowd, give us some. But Musk bluntly argues that waiting for Britain's next election is not an option. Musk, who, might I remind you, is a foreign billionaire, urging Brits to overthrow their elected government. This is just calling for escalation, surely. How about another?
And people on the left celebrating it openly. The left is the party of murder and celebrating murder. I mean, let that sink in for a minute. That's who we're dealing with here. That is who we're dealing with.
Elon, to so many of the British public who are scared to exercise their free speech, they're worried about being imprisoned, they're worried about being attacked, even to share their speech on your platform of X. What message would you give to them?
The message is really, my message is to the reasonable centre, the common sense. So my appeal is to British common sense, which is to look carefully around you and say, if this continues, what world will you be living in? This is a message to the reasonable centre, the people who ordinarily wouldn't get involved in politics, who just want to live their lives. They don't want they're quiet. They just go about their business. My message is to them: if this continues, that violence is going to come to you.
There's the smear. There it is. You just knew it was coming. Musk veers into demonising his political opponents. Musk's blanket vilification of half the population as killers is not only baseless, it's the kind of rhetoric that escalates polarisation and could just justify more violence. Let's just do one more.
Elon, you've spoken a lot about woke culture, the woke mind virus, and how it damages innovation and freedom of thought. We know that DEI often sees people getting jobs when they definitely don't deserve them. Do you think this culture is holding back progress in the West? And what do you think needs to happen to reverse it?
Yeah, I'm appealing to sort of common sense and fairness. I want to emphasize just common sense and fairness, which is that we should make our decisions based on merit, on how, if somebody is talented and hardworking, then that should be the only means of advancement. There should not be discrimination on the basis of sex or religion or any race or anything else. And what a lot of the woke stuff is, it's actually super racist. It's super sexist, and it's often it's anti-religion, but only anti-Christian. Like, why only anti-Christian? That's unfair.
I find that so utterly hilarious that he's claiming it's, anti-Christian. Woke mind virus and anti-Christian, apparently, according to Elon Musk. Feels like there's a massive push for Christian nationalism at the moment in the country, but not in a love thy neighbour sort of way. It definitely reeks of ultra-nationalist views that are seemingly quite frightening. Stepping back, I think it's shocking to see one of the world's richest men aligning himself so openly with the far-right street movement. Musk's video appearance has intentionally or not lent legitimacy and massive attention to Tommy Robinson's cause. And we have to ask, what is Musk's endgame here? He frames it as defending free speech and British common sense, but he's amplifying extremists and sowing fear. Musk has dabbled in UK culture war topics before, even attacking London's grooming gang response, quote unquote, and the UK Online Safety Act. But this rally speech is on another level. It's almost as if Musk sees himself as a leader or a catalyst for a global right-wing anti-woke revolt. Curtis, there's so much to unpack here. I mean, why do you think Musk is inserting himself into this movement? What does he actually gain from this?
Well, first of all, I want to say how soy that man is. I mean, we want to say we want to bring back good things or bring back the past. Why can't we bring back our fascists? At least they were better orators. I mean, the guy's like, the left is part of murder, and what is this woke right nonsense? I mean, they're talking about culture stuff. All this, it's sexist, it's racist. I mean, all of this is a complete inversion on reality. I mean, there's so much there to sort of try and debunk, but this is kind of the problem with the right wing. It's kind of throw shit at the wall and hope something sticks. And sometimes we can get bogged down in it, right? We could spend the next 2 hours debunking every single little thing that Elon Musk is saying, but it's pointless. I think there's only a couple of things that we need to be aware of, and what's important is this is foreign intervention in our political system. I find it extremely ironic that the so-called patriots and the so-called Unite the Kingdom rally has invited on politicians from Europe. Funny that as well when it comes to Europe. I thought we wanted to break ties with them. And we've got a South African foreign billionaire who is talking about, one, getting rid of this government, dissolving parliament, and trying to start a civil war. I mean, when you say the words, violence is going to come to you, whether you want to respond with violence or not is up to you, but violence is going to come to you, that is an incitement of civil war. So I'm actually really interested in what in ways to protect our political system. And one thing that the media don't really want to talk about, one thing the right wing don't want to talk about, is foreign intervention in our British political system. Now, I'm not a nationalist. I am an internationalist, right? But God forbid we at least want to see a nationalist movement. Like, there's no such thing as nationalism or Britain first in this country. It's Israel first. It's America first, right? Again, I'm not a nationalist, but you can't. It's kind of difficult to fight against when your opponent is very slippery. Look, when you look at that rally, I mentioned this in a video earlier, but when you look at that rally, it's well funded. They've got big stages, got flat screen TVs everywhere. There's bands playing, and that is not a grassroots movement. The right wing and far right are an astroturf movement. It's from the top, right? It's funded by tech bros like Elon Musk. It's funded by Israel, right? There's look, the two main foreign powers that we need to worry about when it comes to money is Russia. Now, when I say Russia, people immediately sort of think of Rachel Maddow when she was like, Russia, Russia, Russia. I'm obviously not one of them libs who's obsessed about Russia, who thinks
You're a lib.
the political decision that was that happened in this country, such as Brexit, was down to Russia. No, I'm not. But we can see, for example, Tim Pool, a conservative commentator in America with his Tenet News. It was found that hundreds of thousands of dollars were funneled from Russia to right-wing media because they want to sow division. The Israeli state is trying to do the same thing for different reasons, right? Russia wants the West divided, whereas Israel simply wants to push Islamophobia because they think that's a good way to bolster Zionism. So you think, look at Tommy Robinson. His entire career has been about Islamophobia and division, right? And if you look up on the government website, you can see the English Defence League, which is the sort of original company that he worked for, organization. The original name was called the English and Jewish Defence League.
Yep.
Now, I'm sorry, but I'm quite confused about that. Imagine if you had an English and Black people league. That's such a weird thing. By the way, Jewish people are also English too. Strange thing. But obviously that is, I think, a psyops for Zionist money. And Tommy Robinson and the far right have been funded by US oligarchs, and they've been funded by Zionists. And Zionists want to heavily push the idea of a religious war. And we can see that when it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict. We know, because we actually follow the conflict, we actually, care about the facts. It's a geopolitical issue, right? It's an issue of settler colonialism and expansionism, right? That's what it is. But when you listen to Zionists and Israeli politicians, right, they use genocidal language and they say we need to fight against radical Muslims and Arabs, right? They want to make it a religious war. And they're exporting their religious war over into the West, into the UK. So the majority of people will turn against Muslims and then feel like, do you know what? The fight for Israel is our fight. Because Israel is a Judeo-Christian ethno-nationalist movement. And Israel wants the entire world to sympathize with them. And the way to do that is to create an enemy. Tommy Robinson, his entire career has been Islamophobia. So he works very well with Zionists. Someone like Elon Musk, who, this guy, he's just fundamentally a Nazi. And I know people say, you can't throw that word around. I'm sorry, I'm going to call it as I say it, free speech, right? The guy was supporting the AfD in Germany, the literal neo-Nazis. He's been caught with doing the Sieg Heil, right? This guy is funneling money into right-wing political projects globally, and including the UK. So I want to say to people that, by the way, I don't think that every single person that turned up to the rally is far right. I shared a video on Twitter a couple of days ago where a woman was there. She was with the English flag or British flag. She attended the march and she sounded like a left-winger. She could have been at the anti-fascist march. She was like, I support refugees. I support immigration. But she was like, I just want to be here, because it's nice. And I do think that maybe there were people that joined the march because they saw, well, something's going on here. The point I want to make, though, is that 150,000 people could be radicalized by this AstroTurf movement, because even though I don't think every single person who attended the march is right wing, the leadership is. Katie Hopkins, who said that we should, put gunships on the edge of our borders to basically drown refugees, right? She's calling for, Christian nationalism. Tommy Robinson, as we know, is far right. Elon Musk is a fascist. And it's so salient to understand that this is a billionaire oligarch-backed, I wouldn't even call it movement, it's a political project. There's also another element, which is Christian nationalism. Now, Christian nationalism isn't very big in this country. It's big in America. There is this deliberate move to Americanize our politics, and part of that is religion. You're seeing 18, 19-year-olds turn up to the march and say, Christ is king, right? That is like lifted out of right-wing US commentator playbook, right? So why is there a push for Christian nationalism? We're seeing, is it Nick Telconey? I can't remember his name. The leader of UKIP, right? That bold Nazi. He's talking about his Christian nationalism too. And why is there such a big push for it? Once again, it's so we can attack Islam and Muslims, because it's a proxy war for Israel's war against Arabs and Muslims and ultimately Palestine. So if you're someone who's right-wing but are watching this, I doubt it, but if you are a so-called patriot and you're a nationalist, right? This isn't the movement for it. Tommy Robinson doesn't care about you, right? He cares about the oligarchs. Elon Musk doesn't care about you. He's the richest man in the world. So actually defend your own country and defend the people within its borders. But this isn't it. This is an AstroTurf movement bought and paid for US oligarchs and the Zionist movement.
So well said. So well said. I literally can't even add to that. My final question though is he said that the left are the party of murder. A lot of people are going to be lapping that up, and I'm just wondering how harmful that kind of blanket demonization is to the left. Is that something that's going to harm the left as a whole? Is this something that's going to harm the left movement? What do you think?
I mean, what's really important to understand is that the right wing are the biggest crybabies. Their entire project is about projection, right? So everything they accuse other people is exactly what they do. Now, let's talk about violence against the left and right. Again, we've covered it on this channel many times, but I'm not here to pussyfoot around. I'm just going to tell you it straight. The right wing are more violent than the left, right? Now, many people watching who don't agree with me, but like, well, of course you're going to say that. You're a leftist, right? But look at the facts. Between 2013 and 2022 in America, 75% of political violence was committed by the right wing. All right. Over the last 25 years, majority of people who've been attacked were Democratic politicians. And even the majority of Republican politicians, including Donald Trump, were committed mostly by right wingers, right? The left, right, can't even organize a piss up in a brewery at the moment, right? We're too busy fighting ourselves. We are soft, right? My criticism of the left is that we're not strong enough. We're not bold enough and brave enough. So the idea that we're the ones that are politically violent is insane. Now, of course, there is a deliberate push to build this narrative that the left are violent, because of course it's a way for the right wing, the Trump administration, to become even more authoritarian, right? Because they'll say, look, the left wing's really violent, so we need to clamp down on civil liberties because it's necessary. You know, it's the Reichstag moment in 1930s Germany. There was a young communist who was disillusioned, lost his job, and set fire to, I believe it was a restaurant, right? And it was the Reichstag movement was essentially the Nazis saying, what we're going to do is, instead of saying it was an individual person, we're going to blame all communists and socialists for this. And that's how they created that narrative. The very same thing is happening now, which is we need to tell people that the left wing are very, very violent so we can clamp down on people's freedoms and civil liberties. That's why when we heard about Charlie Kirk, before the man's body was cold, right, we had Nancy Mace and all the right-wing pundits saying, this is political violence from the left. GB News saying, like Matt Goodwin type saying, you know, the left are not the tolerant ones. We didn't even know the motive of the shooter. We still don't know the motive of the shooter, right? First, it was a trans person. Oh, it's a straight white guy or a Christian white guy. A conservative white guy. Oh, then it was a transcription on the bullets. Oh, wait, it's to do with a video game. Oh, his roommate was trans. Like it's bullshit. It's pure projection. Now, whether it's dangerous for the left, I mean, this entire rhetoric of calling for political violence is dangerous, which is ironic, by the way, because Elon Musk says the left are the party of murder, while saying, by the way, if you want to respond with violence, have at it.
Go ahead and do it. Yeah, facts.
So this is absolutely insane. Now, by the way, there isn't going to be a civil war. There's not going to be a civil war here, and there's not going to be a civil war in America. And the reason why there isn't going to be a civil war is because even though people are struggling, the working class are becoming decimated, the middle class are collapsing, people's material conditions are still vaguely being met. As in, not everyone is in poverty, right? It's not a mass famine or mass starvation. They're the conditions to what creates a civil war. We don't have those conditions. So these people will try and push for civil war. Tim Pool says it every other day. It's not going to happen. But what it will do is push the Overton window even further to the right, as we're seeing now with Charlie Cook. Apparently he's a moderate when he's not. And what we're going to see is a anocracy, which is basically it's a term which means it's a mixture between liberal democracy and authoritarianism. It's authoritarian tendencies. And that is where we're going to see maybe this reform government. It's where we're going to see Donald Trump. And expect your freedoms to be even more attacked.
Oh, yeah. The freedoms are going to be clamped down upon entirely. And anyone who drives a Tesla, I am judging you. Really well said, Curtis. Thank you. I'm conscious of time, so let's go on to our second story. This hasn't really been in a lot of people's mouths, but I think it's important to talk about. A Sikh woman in her 20s has bravely spoken out after being raped in a racially aggravated attack in Oldbury, West Midlands. Huge trigger warning, by the way. Police say two white men ambushed her around 8:30 in the morning as she walked to work, shouting, "You don't belong in this country. Get out!" during the assault. In a statement via Sikh Youth UK, the survivor said, "I would never wish this on anyone. All I was doing was going about my day on my way to work, and what has happened has deeply affected us. I want to personally thank my family, Sikh Youth UK, the local Gurdwara committees and Sikh organisations, and everyone in my community who has stood by me, helping me get through this difficult time." Jaz Singh of the Sikh Federation UK warned this incident comes amid a trend of growing hatred. He says, "We've seen Union Jacks appearing up and down in the UK, but hate is being festered and people are getting attacked as a result." This case highlights systemic failures in policing and justice. Though Midlands police call this crime incredibly rare, recent studies show that rape survivors are routinely re traumatised by the very institutions meant to protect them. A 2024 survey found 73% of survivors said police treatment worsened their mental health. 73% of survivors said police treatment worsened their mental health. Sorry, I did repeat that. This assault is explicitly racialized. The slurs make it very clear. Sexual violence here is not just gendered power, but my God, let me start again. But wielded as racial terror. In the public discourse, we see a disturbing double standard. Far-right figures like Stephen Yaxley Lennon eagerly trumpet stories of Muslim grooming gangs to stoke Islamophobia, but surprise, surprise, they have gone silent on this case. Curtis, the media coverage with this has been little to none, and in light, of Tommy Robinson's, where we have the supposed protect the women and children brigade. Yet here we have a Sikh woman raped by two white men shouting racial slurs, and the far right or the people on the right are literally saying nothing. What does that silence tell us about the real motivation behind these rallies?
Well, thank you for highlighting this story. It's pretty much been silent in the media. Of course, when you Google it, you will find certain headlines. But is this the wall-to-wall coverage we saw from the grooming gangs? Of course not. Zara Sultana tweeted about this story on Twitter. And of course, given that Twitter is under the algorithm of Elon Musk, it's basically a Nazi hellhole now, isn't it? And, a plethora of abuse went her way. And a lot of people saying, why aren't you talking about the grooming gangs, the Pakistani grooming gangs? You're only talking about this. Obviously, you don't care. That's not true. But the point is, when it came to the grooming gangs, it got wall-to-wall coverage, right? It was on GB News every single day. The BBC every single day. Where's this story? Now, I wanted to cover my tracks, by the way. So I did Google. I Googled this story plus GB News to see if they had said anything. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And we know why. Let's be real here. We know why it's not covered. It's because it's a brown woman, a Sikh woman. That doesn't fit the narrative. Why is this not in the media? Because it can't be politicized. I mean, this might seem actually unrelated, but I think it does relate. I was speaking to Matt Binder a couple of days ago, and it was obviously to do with the Charlie Kirk story. And I asked him why mental health isn't really discussed in this, because that's something that should be addressed, but it wasn't spoken about. And he said because it can't be politicized. Not really. And that just now made me wonder about many other stories. And this one can't be politicized. Now, of course, when it comes to Rotherham, when it comes to Pakistani grooming gangs, of course, you can racialize it. You can say, clearly there's a problem with brown Pakistani men. We need to do something about it. That is a political issue. Whereas this can't be done because it just shows that actually the problem isn't if you're Pakistani. The problem isn't if you're a person of color or an immigrant. The problem, quite frankly, is men. That has always been the truth. It always will be the truth unless we do something about this system we're under. I feel shocked and disgusted about what happened, but I feel more angry than sad because once again, we're only seeing independent media like us and then, a couple of articles here and there to talk about it. Now, obviously, this is nothing new when I say this because a lot of people have been saying it. I feel like I might be repeating myself or repeating other people's talking points, but it is funny how the so-called, people who are concerned about violence against women are not talking about this. And yes, I'm talking about the right wing again. In fact, actually, at the march on Saturday, you had a bunch of lads pissed up singing "Get Your Tits Out." Okay, it's some people might see that's harmless, maybe not, I don't know. But if you're going to try and tell people that we are really concerned about women, and that's why we're concerned about refugees and migrants because of young girls, who are you fooling? Maybe a lot
Mm.
of people. You're not fooling me, and certainly not fooling us. So this is another example of hypocrisy from the media because it doesn't serve a wider agenda. Now, if the media
Mm.
did its job, it would talk about this. I think it should have wall-to-wall coverage, right? I think any sort of crime of this magnitude maybe should, or maybe it shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe we should just be equal about it. But if you're going to do wall-to-wall coverage on a certain kind of crime from a certain suspect and not do it the same, it's transparently obvious that it's obviously racism, but it doesn't serve the wider narrative that actually multiculturalism has failed and immigration isn't working. And by the way, when a lot of the right-wing pundits call the BBC left-wing, they are not left-wing. They certainly are not. I mean, I would say my estimation of the BBC is the journalists within it anyway. I mean, maybe they're slightly social liberals when it comes to immigration, but hardcore Thatcherized. But it doesn't really matter about the individual journalist. The editorial line of the BBC is still pretty right-wing. I mean, they constantly talk about immigration just like the rest of the media organizations, which, I happen to think proportionality matters. And the number one issue facing the working class and middle class is obviously, people's material conditions. That should be spoken about the most. So the BBC isn't left-wing. It's just not quite as overtly right-wing, which to some people, they think that's left-wing. But it's, once again, media hypocrisy, and marginalized communities are going to be hurt by this, of course.
Absolutely. They are. I just watched a video of Tommy Robinson actually doing a video on the 12th of September, basically saying that we should call out all sorts of violence. I'm thinking, and he was behaving so confused in the video, like, how has this happened? Two English men doing this to some of our respected minorities. I'm thinking, you don't give a fuck. You don't care. And this is what I hate. I hate it when people like him, like Stephen, weaponize or use the violence that happens to women and girls as a chess piece to assert some sort of political agenda or to score political points. And I say political very loosely, but I think he does think he's some sort of like politicized figure that has a voice and or a platform. And he does have a platform. But I've just watched that video and it's awful. So maybe go watch it. But Curtis, really great analysis. I want to get on to the next story because I'm conscious of time. But firstly, if you're enjoying the stream, then please, like and subscribe. Just to remind viewers that we are 5 volunteers and we do not get paid for this work. But one day we would love for this to be our full-time job. We just made it to 30k, so we're doing great things. We're getting somewhere. So if you can, then consider becoming a supporter by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support, and there you can become a monthly patron. Or there is another link for a one-off donation. Of course, you can also become a YouTube member for just 99 pence. But don't put yourself out. A like and a share and a comment does go a long way too. But yeah, your support doesn't go unnoticed. Next story, though. Danny Kruger has joined the Tory Tribute Act. Kruger, an Eton-educated former Boris Johnson aide, has jumped ship to Nigel Farage's Reform UK, and it has sparked shock and ridicule across Westminster. Kruger himself declared that the Conservative Party is over and hailed Farage as the new custodian of the right. Oh, that's nice. Just brown-nosed the leader of the party, I guess. That will get you very far, Kruger. It's a pretty breathtaking turnaround because just days earlier, he warned in the Commons, that Reform would now, brace yourself for this, by the way, spend money like drunken sailors. So quite the turnaround for someone to now defect to Reform. And yet now he's joining the crew and even taking a senior spot preparing Reform for government. I think he'll fit in quite nicely. Kruger's hardline views fit disturbingly well with Reform's agenda. He famously claimed last year that marriage between men and women is the only basis for a safe and successful society. A stance that happily aligns with Reform's attack on LGBTQ+ rights, and he has openly mocked women's reproductive autonomy, arguing in Parliament that a pregnant woman's right to choose is qualified by the fact that another body is involved. Nightmare on Elm Street has nothing on this Kruger. This has been met with disdain on X, with this barrister tweeting, "Hey, Danny Kruger, you are supposed to be my Conservative MP. What on earth do you think you're doing? Local people did not vote for this." God forbid he loses Kruger. Curtis, what is going on in the House of Commons? Kruger is part of the old Tory elite who has openly attacked reform spending plans as like drunk sailors, spending plans like drunk sailors. What does this sudden flip flop tell us about his political consistency? Why do you think the sudden move?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I think that Danny Kruger is a slightly higher caliber of politician than the last couple, like Andrea Jenkins and Nadine Dorris. It is noteworthy that, yes, he served under Boris Johnson. He was the chief speechwriter of David Cameron. And let's remember, between 2006 and 2015, this was a very successful period for the Conservatives. Now, partly was because of the 2008 financial crisis, and the Labour Party didn't defend their spending. In fact, they could have built an entire narrative that it was a global financial crash, but instead they did, the classic Blairite thing, which is we spent too much money. That lent into the narrative, which obviously helped the Conservative Party. But we have to understand that David Cameron, was a very effective political operator, right? And it is noteworthy that Danny Kruger was his speechwriter. The Conservatives in that period really set the tone. They set the narrative, which is we've spent too much money, we need to live within our means, and they were very, very successful. David Cameron's a very slick kind of character, confident, speaks well, and clearly commanded the confidence of the nation, which is why he's won. So this isn't like another recent clown MP. I do think it's kind of significant that this is someone who is a slightly higher caliber. Now, when I say higher caliber, it's still a low bar. It's the Conservative Party, It doesn't mean he's particularly good or that competent. But again, it's not like the dregs of the Conservative Party like we've seen from Nadine Dorris. So I think that's really important to note. The other important thing to note is I think many more Conservative MPs are going to join Reform now.
Yeah.
I think this has probably been quite a significant push here. Some people have said that this is actually more significant than Douglas Carswell, because Douglas Carswell, I would say, actually is someone who has zero political sort of nous anyway. He's kind of an empty head, an idiot. Whereas Danny Kruger's got some spice about him. Not maybe in terms of like excitement, no, but he's certainly more competent than some of the others. And I think some people are going to look at this and go, actually, some Conservative MPs who thought, I don't want to join Reform, may do that. Because, look, Zahir Yousaf turns Reform into a far more professional party. Look, they didn't get from, 6% of the polls to 35% just by being a clown show, right? It is because it has become a slightly more professional operation. Now, a lot of that is bolstered by the collapse of the Conservative Party and now the Labour Party. Of course, that's also the media. But I do think that Reform are a far more serious party than before. And that worries me more because I want them to be incompetent in government. I don't want them being able to pass the sort of legislation that they want to pass. And because I feel like that they could be a more competent version of the recent iteration of the Conservative Party, that does worry me a little bit. Of course, it's also true that what this basically means is Reform is just Tory 2.0. I think everyone knows that analysis. I don't really need to go into that really. But I actually don't think people really care. Obviously, a lot of the thrust from the Reform Party is the hatred of the Conservative Party. Most of the Reform Party votes has come from the Tories, right? But I don't think people really care. I don't think if you told a Reform voter or supporter and said, well, this is Danny Kruger, he was a speechwriter for David Cameron, secretary to Boris Johnson, and now he's joined Reform. Oh, by the way, he criticised Reform a couple of days ago. They'd be like, I don't care. And the reason why they don't care, but why this means so much for the pundit class, is because for the media commentary, him criticizing the Reform Party being bad on the economy is really good for them. They love this. Oh, this is meat, But ordinary people do not care because people don't care about Westminster politicking. So the Labour Party, they've already come out and attacked Kruger and the Reform Party, by the way, as if people give a shit. No one cares because the entire thrust and enthusiasm for Reform and left-wing parties is anti-Westminster. It's anti-Westminster politics bullshit, and these kinds of stories, which the media love and think it's such an exciting game that a senior Tory has left to the Reform Party. Like, no one cares. Really, really, no one cares. Now, obviously, that's a big contradiction there because as I said, a lot of reform support is conservative hatred. But for people, it doesn't go that deep. People really are interested in the reform brand, and namely Nigel Farage. So they don't really care about some nameless Tory MP figure. Most people probably won't know who Danny Kruger is. To be honest, I didn't know who he is until today. I had to research him. That just shows. And I'm a political nerd, so some average reform person will not care. So I don't think this is going to make a negative impact on reform. If anything, it could make a positive impact on reform, because I think a lot more Conservative MPs will jump ship. And even though it's correct to say reform are just basically the Tories 2.0, that attack line is not going to work, because once again, it's a very internal Westminster politics kind of argument, which no one cares about, but will be good for reform because they'll have more MPs. And I think more and more people might see, oh, I can really trust reform because ex-government, members have joined the party. Obviously, there's some figures like Boris Johnson that would be bad, but of course, he's a very famous guy, and Reform have already said we wouldn't want to have him. But again, they did it with Nadine Dorries. But yeah, I think that this doesn't really do much for Reform. I don't think it's going to massively boost them. I don't think it's going to negatively impact them in any way. It's just an extra MP for them.
I guess it's just because it's all so sudden. Like, I wonder about Kruger's constituents here, because they voted for Tory, like not a
Yeah.
reformer. So what happens then? Should MPs be forced to face like some sort of by-election when they defect like this? Like what happens next? Because I would be pretty livid if my local constituency said, yeah, actually, not that this would happen, it could never happen. Oh yeah, now I want to go to reform. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, you're supposed to be serving me. Like, it's not about what you want, surely. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, Nigel Farage seems to think so, because he said in 2022, I believe, when talking about Christian Wakeford, who crossed the floor from the Tories to the Labour Party, said there needs to be a by-election.
Yeah.
There needs to be a by-election. So if Nigel Farage is consistent, he'll call for a by-election. He won't, by the way.
He won't.
And most people don't do this. I mean, this is across the political spectrum. It's a political attack line, right? It's if another party crosses the floor, another MP crosses the floor, right? They'll criticize them. When it happens to you, they won't. I mean, if I'm honest, if Nadia Whittome crossed the floor and went to the Green Party, would I call for a by-election? No.
Probably not.
No, I wouldn't. And people can call me a hypocrite. I don't really care, because at the moment, given the crisis we're in, political power is very important. And if there's more political power to the Green Party, then I'd support it. So, Nigel Farage is obviously not consistent. A lot of us probably aren't very consistent on that. I don't think it's a really big deal. Although, look, if there was a law that was brought in, or some kind of, if there was a law that brought in that said if you cross the floor, there should be a by-election. Like, I would support it. I wouldn't oppose it. But I don't think people really care that much. I don't think the constituencies will particularly care that much either.
You're probably right, because like you said, and it's true, reform is just basically 2.0. I think they're kind of just getting what they would have wanted. I think they think that the Conservatives are weak. They don't have much of a backbone at the moment. They have lost considerably, and I don't think they have much momentum. Reform is probably what Tory voters are wanting right now. So yeah, you're probably right. Right. On to this final story, though. A new ITV News report has exposed a sickening breach of basic decency at the heart of Starmer's team. A senior aide to Keir Starmer has resigned in disgrace after explicit texts were uncovered about Diane Abbott. Paul Ovendine, a senior aide to Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, has resigned after offensive and sexual text messages came to light in which he recounted a conversation about veteran MP Diane Abbott. Leave Diane alone, honestly. Now, this is the leaked transcript. Paul Ovendine at 3:58. I've got something that will make you LOL from last night. We were playing Shag, Marry, Kill at PT. Honestly, I nearly wet myself laughing. The name has been redacted. At 4:00, it says, what? I love that game. Paul says, ask so-and-so asking, and then who would use the strap-on out of her and Diane Abbott was the highlight/lowlight. So-and-so, physical demonstration of so-and-so. Putting it on was amazing. What are you doing? It's so big as shoulder straps. Ha ha ha, that's amazing. What was the answer? Some awful mental pics are assembling in my head. Paul Ovendine then responds with, we spent a lot of time discussing, redacted, going down on Diane. Honestly, it was outrageous. Oh my God, they respond. Utterly disgusting. The government has responded, and they said, the spokesperson for the Prime Minister called the messages appalling and unacceptable, saying, As the first black woman to be elected to parliament, Diane Abbott is a trailblazer who has faced horrendous abuse throughout her political career. Calling her trailblazer, they bloody suspended her twice. The key question is, who enabled this? Paul Ovenden didn't act in isolation. He'd climbed the ranks of Starmer's inner circle, analysing voter trends and shaping strategy, and he reported directly to none other than Morgan McSweeney. McSweeney and others hold that much power, but why wasn't anyone watching what was going on? How could a senior advisor blithely talk about humiliating Diane Abbott in such vile terms without any oversight or consequence until now? The rot is honestly systemic. Then you've got spineless Starmer calling these revelations quote unquote chilling, but chilling isn't enough to describe this. Curtis, they're attacking Diane Abbott again. She refused to even comment on this. She said, I'm not going to comment, because she said it's something that she's had to constantly contend with throughout her whole political career. I mean, what do you make of all of this? This is obviously an internal leak, but it's pretty damning, isn't it?
Well, these people are children. Children.
Mm.
Shag, marry, kill. It's so embarrassing. I mean, these people are supposed to be the competent ones. They're supposed to be the adults in the room, right? What are these 10-year-olds? It's amazing. Honestly, it's amazing. Like, listening to them giggle like children over Diane Abbott. And by the way, if I have to hear a Labour MP say that Diane Abbott is a trailblazer again, I'm going to lose my mind, right? You're absolutely right. The Labour Party suspended Diane Abbott twice. So for a spokesperson to say, this is abhorrent, this is disgusting, she's a trailblazer, you don't care about her. You don't give a toss. She's not got the Labour whip. And the reason why you removed the whip is because she talked about the hierarchy of racism, which is a true thing. Let's talk about the hierarchy of racism. This reminds me, like, oh my God, it reminds me just about the Labour leaks that we heard in 2019, 2020. And Diane Abbott was completely, she was within the Labour leaks there because she received disgusting, sexist and racist comments from other Labour MPs. I think even Paul Ovenden was implicated in these Labour leaks. So, of course, this is nothing new for Diane Abbott. But what this does is expose the rot that's inside the Labour Party. I mean, I'll borrow Wes Streeting's term, the fish rots from their heads. But this is the Labour right. Okay, they're bastards. They are horrible, horrible, vile, disgusting people. And they're so vile and disgusting, not against the Conservatives, though, but against the left, particularly black women on the left. These are the type of people that are in the party. And they have controlled the party machinery for a very long time, including under Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, that was the big schism with Corbyn's leadership. Is obviously he was a leader of the opposition. He had the Lotto team. He had the membership. But in between, which is why it made it so difficult for him to be leader, let's be honest, was that Labour machinery in the middle. And the Blairites and the right wing of the Labour Party always controlled it. And that's been the same ever since. Diane Abbott is the most abused MP in Parliament. She received 50% of all sexist and racist abuse, I believe, in between 2017 and 2019. 50%, right? So you've got to think all the other MPs, and then she makes up of half of them. Absolutely deplorable. And even with the Labour leaks, even when we saw these messages about Diane Abbott and Keir Starmer was going to get on it and appointed Martin Ford QC even to do something about it, to do a report, which he did, the Ford report, and came back and said, by the way, there's racism, sexism, particularly against Diane Abbott, but there's also a factional warfare going on, mostly perpetuated by the right wing. What did Keir Starmer do? He ignored Martin Ford. He wouldn't return his phone calls because he didn't like the answer. Right? This is Keir Starmer, former human rights lawyer, proper statesman, right? Clamping down on racism, apparently. Remember he said the door was there? And we've made changes so you can fuck off. He said that we're no longer an anti-Semitic party. There wasn't a crisis of anti-Semitism, as we know. But of course, performative fighting against anti-Semitism is what matters, right? They don't care about real anti-Semitism and they don't care about other forms of racism, obviously, right? So we've seen in black and white the way Labour MPs have spoken about Diane Abbott 5 years ago, and yet we're still now seeing emails and messages being leaked, sexually explicit content about Diane Abbott. It is truly disgusting, but this tells you everything you need to know about the Labour right. I happen to think that the Labour right are worse than probably the majority of Conservative MPs.
Yeah.
Now, I think the Conservative Party and Conservative MPs probably on a few things are to the right on policy, although it's becoming very hard to distinguish that. Maybe they're not. But I believe there are many Conservative MPs who would not act in this way. They certainly wouldn't treat each other as bad as this. I've never seen such, because it goes beyond factionism. I've never seen such vitriol and disgust, not just against Diane Abbott, but of the left of the Labour Party, than I've, compared to fights within the Conservative Party. The Labour right are horrible, soulless, nasty people. They are scum. They are scum, and they should be nowhere near power, nowhere near the state. And guess what? Keir Starmer going won't change that. I do think that maybe this is some sort of political stitch-up by Morgan McSweeney. You referenced that this was given to McSweeney. Why has this come out 7 years later? He's a Keir Starmer aide. I think it's probably because the controversy with Peter Mandelson, Morgan McSweeney wants to see Keir Starmer gone. The reason why he wants to see Keir Starmer gone is because Morgan McSweeney pushed to keep Peter Mandelson. It's very embarrassing for him. And I think he's worried that Keir Starmer might start to dig in with Peter Mandelson. Although they're both implicated, he might try that. So I think that McSweeney, once again, is probably doing some internal leaks here, trying to embarrass Keir Starmer, get him to resign. But you know what? I don't give a fuck about tensions between Morgan McSweeney and Keir Starmer. They're both disgusting people. They both belong to a disgusting... It's no longer a faction, by the way. This is just the Labour Party, right? All decent people pretty much left. There's no one decent left. So... I can't wait to see this party completely die. I don't want to die a miserable, miserable death. Diane Abbott deserves so much better. The first black woman to become MP in Parliament. She has been on the right side of history time and time again. And when she speaks up about her own racism, when she speaks up about the hierarchy of racism, which still exists, this is how she's treated.
It's a shame as well, because I can't even say that I'm surprised. And even in Paul's apology, he had said, well, if we pulled up conversations or text messages that people have had in a pub or with their friends, you probably would find that they've said some heinous things.
They're not in a pub.
They're not in a pub, mate.
This is messages between Labour officials.
Exactly.
Between politicians talking about another MP. You wouldn't say this at a workplace.
You would absolutely not say that at a workplace.
By the way, I don't think it's good to say, oh, by the way, this is how we talk about women in the pub. If that's what you do, get new friends. But but imagine this is a workplace. Imagine this is your colleague. You work at a call center, and you were talking about this, and the emails are exposed. The idea that he can defend himself is grotesque. But these people, look, he defends himself because he thinks he's above it. He thinks he's above Diane Abbott. The Labour right think they're better than the left, better than people like Diane Abbott. That's how they can, put out a pity apology. They don't give a fuck.
They don't give a fuck. That's exactly what I wanted to say, though, because him saying that is you're enabling this really weird culture of speaking about women, particularly black women, in such a vulgar way, completely dehumanizing her, and no respect whatsoever. You're absolutely right. I hope the Labour Party completely falls on its face. I mean, it's another L for Starmer, and I hope he continues to take more L's. Another L for the Labour Party, and I hope they continue to take more L's, because they bloody deserve it. If these are the sorts of people you have in your circle, and this is the culture that you're creating, sort yourself out, because I think you need a reality check. You've been on fire tonight, Curtis. You normally say that to me, but tonight you've been on fire. I haven't been able to add to your analysis because your analysis has been so top tier. Let's go to our producer for comments, though. Callum.
Hello. How are we all?
Yes, good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. Great show as always. Right, just before we delve into the comments,
the rest of us, though.
Oh well, I'll sit further back. Then.
Oh yeah.
Just before we get started, we have a little announcement to make. Well, it's not one of our announcements, it's somebody else's announcement, but we're going to make it anyway. As you'll probably all be aware, President Donald Trump is coming for a state visit this week to the UK. He lands late tomorrow evening, and the official state visit begins on Wednesday. There are protests planned throughout the week across the country, including outside of London in places like Manchester and in Edinburgh. But on Wednesday, there is a national protest planned by the Stop Trump coalition, which has formed partly with alongside Grace Blakely. She's involved with the organisation of this protest. If you are in London on Wednesday, the plan is to meet at Portland Place outside the BBC at 2 p.m. March starts at 3 with a rally at the end of the march at Parliament Square at 5 p.m. Full details can be found on social media at this Stop Trump coalition on the multiple pages. But yeah, check that one out if you're interested. Like I say, there's other protests elsewhere, including one in the north of Manchester, which is on Wednesday evening, and also one I think on Thursday in Edinburgh as well. But yeah, we wanted to give that a shout out. I'm going to try and get to the Manchester one and speak to people there and do some coverage as well. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, fantastic show as always. Lots and lots to get through. Let's start with the super chats. So James Holmes has gifted 5 Turn Left memberships.
Thank you so much.
James.
Very consistent.
As always, we really appreciate everyone that supports the channel in any way that they possibly can. So thank you for that. Welcome to everyone who is coming up on the screen right now. We've had a £5 super chat from Anu, just to say £5 from Anu. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We're grateful for that. Ephra has sent 1111, the angel numbers there. Here's to 100k before the end of the year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Let's hope that 1111 rings true for us.
Yeah, I feel like it will happen. I don't know. I've got a feeling.
Is there a reference to 1111, by the way? Am I being silly?
You know the angel number 1111?
I don't know.
Some people believe in like numerology, like numbers and the significance of them, but we can do a whole, I don't know, commentary on that. Maybe you want to do a commentary on that.
I'll probably pass because I don't know much about it.
Oh, joking.
It's significant anyway, put it that way. We've got £5 donation there from Leo. Diane is
Thanks,
mother,
Leo.
literally. And she is mother of the house and is mother. And then Coops Co-ops has asked with a £9.99 super chat, which we're grateful for. Thank you so much for that. What is your view on Farage's partner owning the house in his constituency to possibly avoid property tax?
Well, what is my view on it? I'm not surprised. I mean, I don't even know what I'm supposed to say to this. This is just classic people who claim they're anti-establishment, people who claim they're for the working people, do everything that isn't working class at all whatsoever. Like, this is just them trying to protect elites and elite interests all the time. So I'm not surprised by Farage doing something like this. I mean, all they want to do is evade tax, don't they?
I mean, I called out this hypocrisy about Angela Rayner. Like, I thought Angela Rayner should resign, but you know, I'm not a partisan hack. And I thought, well, Nigel Farage has done this as well. And people are saying, no, but it's legal when he does it. I'm like, okay, let's change the fucking law then.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea that you can just put something in someone else's name and you pay less taxes. That's not very patriotic of you, is it? That you want to pay less taxes in this country.
I think it was just the way that he told Sky News, sorry, oh yeah, I'm in the process of buying a property in the area, when he was asked about not living there, and at no point did he say, well, my partner's in the process. And it's not even like it's a joint, a joint mortgage where both belongs to both of them. It is her property, and that's deliberate, because if it was his, he'd have had to pay the higher the higher amount of stamp duty, which he then had a go at Angela Rayner for not paying, despite the fact that he himself had, well, I mean, presumably, deliberately got his partner to buy the property so that he didn't have to pay it. But what would we expect from Nigel Farage?
Literally, what would you expect? And also, I might just move to Clacton so I never have to see him anyway. Do you know what I mean?
But the thing is, this isn't a Nigel Farage thing, though, because I think this is
it's not
an MP thing. So I wouldn't say, oh, it was typical Nigel Farage. No, this is just typical MP.
Typical MP, but also you're so right. It's typical MP, but also I feel like every MP now at this point who does things like this are just people who want to protect elite interests, and I'm tired of it. Like when Starmer was like, when he first got elected, this is the first ever time we've had a cabinet full of state educated working class women. I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I know for a fact that these people are evading some sort of tax or are trying to still retain as much wealth as possible and wanting to hoard wealth and like try and capitalize off of their assets. They don't represent working class interests. I don't care if they're state educated, because you're not one of us at all.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in Clacton at the next election. I know Zach Polanski was there recently. In fact, he was there the same day that Emily Maitlis was there for Newscast. They bumped into each other and, well, bumped into each other. I mean, you know,
Probably,
well,
well,
I don't know if it was a planned thing or not, but they were both speaking to people in the area, and I think it was surprising, I think, to see how many people have already seemed to have gone off him. Now, it may just have been selective in terms of what they were putting out, but you know, Zach was talking to constituents there, telling them, you know, did you know that he's voted against, you know, workers' rights bills, things that would be designed to, you know, help you, things like that, and they were quite shocked to hear that he'd done that. So, who knows? I mean, the tide might change. It would be quite funny if Reform win the next election, but Nigel Farage loses his seat, wouldn't it? Um, who knows? But anyway, moving on to our starred comments. Just at the top of the show, Jacqueline said, "Well done, Curtis and Sarah. Only a few from 1 million subscribers." You know,
Yeah,
the way that we count numbers today.
numbers don't matter. So,
No,
Oh.
no.
and
Great
as
thousand,
someone who was
3
obsessed
million.
with our numbers, so
Yeah.
not healthy, but
Graham said, "You can tell how much Elon respects Tommy by the way he didn't even bother to have a shower." Which I thought was quite telling. Michael's noticed as well, woke is racist. Yeah, I noticed that comment from Musk there as well. And what do you make of this one? 80s Music said Musk should be banned by the UK government from speeches like the one he made. I mean, we've covered the fact that it was essentially incitement to violence. Do we think he should be banned from making those speeches, or do we think the government just needs to be better at responding when things like this are
It's a really good
kind of done?
question. I mean, I know that the illogical thing to say would be to absolutely silence him. Like, I don't want him to have a platform. I don't want him to own X. I want X to be taken down sometimes because of how visceral and awful and hostile of a place it is. But I do think that he is responsible or would be responsible for almost enticing or emboldening the right to feel a certain type of way about manufactured issues. I think he needs to be held to account, but what does accountability look like anymore? Because if you try to hold people like that to account, they will just turn around and say, "You're trying to silence me in my free speech." I think it is about response. Like, how do we respond to people like that? It's like you did that video, Curtis, on Ryland spewing out all those massively wrong facts about migration. It's just responding like that, I think, that actually could gain some sort of momentum. But that's my take.
I mean, I want to see Twitter, I want to see all social media prized at the hands of billionaires. They should not be controlled by these people, because that's, to be honest, a Zoom call at March is less damaging. I mean, his words were damaging. That's far less damaging than what Elon Musk is doing to Twitter and the algorithms, because it's not just him. It's the amplification of bots. It's the amplification of really extreme right-wing views. And this is not just a Musk thing or a Twitter thing. Mark Zuckerberg is doing it on Facebook. Apparently Threads is becoming quite right-wing as well. This is the problem of, this is an oligarchy problem. So it feels like there's no true way of responding it unless we completely overhaul our economic system, right? I don't think responding to Elon Musk's points individually is going to do anything. I don't think banning him is going to do much. He'll find other avenues. I don't know how you can ban a Zoom call. What we really need to do is prize the power away from these people. We need to outlaw billionaires. It should be illegal to be a billionaire. There should be a 100% tax over a certain amount, because it's not about money. It's about power, and money equals power, right? We cannot have someone like Elon Musk who basically wants to just decide global politics. I mean, it's bad enough that he can influence and pretty much buy elections. It's bad enough that our media buy our own elections. But now we've got global oligarchies, which is, by the way, I find very ironic from the right wing, who say, we hate globalism, but by the way, we love this globalism, right? We love America and Israel and others, and Elon Musk doing everything to our politics, right? In South Africa, because he's from South Africa. We love that. We just don't like globalism when it's poor immigrants, right? And this is also a thing which, by the way, led by donkeys, I criticize a lot, because I think they're ultimately kind of a liberal institution. They never criticize the Labour Party, but they did a brilliant documentary, well, not a documentary, a video, on Nigel Farage, and he was helping bring over economic migrants. And these economic migrants were very, very rich. He was working with companies to bring over multi-millionaires and to get them visas and stuff. So like this guy supports economic migrants, but if you're rich. So I think it's so funny to see the right wing say globalism is bad and it's, you know, we need to stand against globalism and protect our borders, but we don't want to protect our borders from a psychotic, divorced billionaire.
Yeah. I did notice the irony though in Ed Davey taking to Twitter to call for government to boycott Elon Musk's businesses. I did think you could have put that one on Blue Sky, Ed, but
Well, I mean,
but no, I don't. Phoebe said, "You're right. They do want a religious war, and they don't care who wins it. They just want massive division, violence, and distraction while they rob us all blind," which I think is a fair comment. I'm interested in your take on this one from Kumit Returns, who said, "Thing is, country has a desire for nationalism now. Overton window shifting back isn't going to happen quick enough. The only way for socialism now is going to have elements of nationalism." What do you make of that?
That's an interesting one. Like,
I feel like this feels to me a little bit like the recent comments about, you know, social conservatism as well. You know, it's like, can we truly have a left-wing socialist movement if we have elements of nationalism too?
I mean, I think desire for nationalism is interesting. Like, I think there is an appetite for belonging and collective identity in the UK, but it doesn't necessarily always automatically mean people are flocking to Stephen's version of it. I mean, he's just a microcosm of that. A lot of the working classes feel alienated from mainstream politics and the media. They don't feel represented, and I do think figures like him do exploit that vacuum. But the actual turnout, I think, when we're speaking about that march or that rally in particular, to the UK population is tiny, which would suggest that whilst there's this crisis of like representation, I don't think it's necessarily translating into this mass far right movement with like majority appeal. But that being said, I think what's more telling is that the government and major parties have been adopting nationalist talking points themselves, like, you know, the flag draped conferences, and I have a St. George's flag in my living room, whatever. These immigration crackdowns and stop the boat rhetoric. I think that legitimizes nationalist talking points, and that's where it gets dangerous. I don't know if if the UK has a desire for nationalism. I don't know. I don't think it's a nationwide desire. I think the biggest driver of nationalist sentiment is the state itself, which is normalizing nationalism from the top down. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, to kind of reference to what I was just saying, I don't know if there is a desire for nationalism because there's just a desire for a different kind of globalism, which is ruled by Americans. I mean, did you see how many people at that march who were just pushing out American talking points? So is there even that much of a big of a drive for nationalism? I don't know if that can work. I'm pretty sure it can't. What I do think is something that the left should consider is progressive patriotism. And I know when Rebecca Long Bailey proposed that in the 2020 Labour leadership, a lot of people laughed at it. And I guess at the time it was kind of funny because it's like, what are you trying to do? But actually, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think actually Clive Lewis, he put out a tweet a couple of days ago saying his friend went to the march is not right-wing in any way. I don't have any problem with trying to reclaim the flag and attack so-called patriots of not being patriots. I mean, what I was saying today in the earlier video and what I've been saying tonight is these aren't actual patriots. These are people who support foreign oligarchs.
Exactly.
So actually, the left actually cares about this country. I care about ending homelessness in this country. I care about the material conditions of people in this country. I also think it's a very good point, and this could work hand in hand, which is that when people say, once the immigrants have gone, where the right wing going to go? We know exactly where they're going to go. They're going to go to the British working class. They're going to go to the white working class. They're going to bring back chavs, right? Before people were talking about immigration, it was Benefit Street and people... Yeah, people are just lazy, right? The British people are lazy. And now they've thought, well, okay, people probably aren't quite as reactionary on benefits. I think Jeremy Corbyn helped to turn that tide as well, actually. And now they've gone for migrants and refugees and asylum seekers. I'm not saying that, you know, anti-migrant sentiment is new. It's not. But the focus has really been on that. But guess what? Once they finish with that scapegoat, they're going to go back to the white working class. And the left can say, do you know what? right? You say that the left don't care about the white working class. Your heroes don't care about the white working class. We care about the working class, regardless of your race, religion, who you identify with. We care about your material conditions. So I think a progressive patriotism thing can work. I don't know whether a nationalism and socialism can work. I don't, and I'm also saying that in the same sentence makes me feel really icky. I don't think that's something that can work. But yeah, reclaiming the flag in the name of left-wing politics, I have zero problem with that.
I think we definitely need to do that in terms of the progressive patriotism, and also, there is a difference between being patriotic and being a nationalist,
I agree.
which a lot of people seem to be lost on. But yeah, I noticed when Ben recently went on GB News, actually, he had a Union Jack pin
I
on,
love that. I'm all
which
for
was
that.
just brilliant because he's there and he's talking about he's talking with sympathy about migrants and telling
Yeah.
stories of refugees and of of working class children whose and families whose dad has fallen asleep behind a bus when because of working hours, when talking about the unions, etc. But he's doing it all with a Union Jack because he's saying, well, you know what, I am proud to be British. I'm British. I'm a patriot. I love my country, and it's because I love my country that I want to see my country do well, and that includes being open to diverse groups and people from different backgrounds and different religions and different sexualities and different genders and different races, because it's what Britain's about. We are a diverse country and we can be proud of that. Although it was really interesting, I recently I went to see Miriam Margolyes in conversation recently. She's got a book out that she was trying to sell, hence why she was on tour. And somebody had asked her, and she was talking about all the flags at the moment. And she said something that I thought was quite interesting. And she says this as a Jewish woman. She said that we should be looking at those flags that are up at the moment as if they are swastikas. She said because the reason why they have been put up isn't because people are patriotic. It's not because people care about the country. It's because they're anti-immigration and because they want to send a message that people aren't welcome here. And I thought, that really struck a chord when she said that. So yeah, I think it is time to reclaim the flag. How we do it, who knows? But it's definitely, small steps, I think.
Well, I mean, you can say that the national dish is a tikka masala, right? Which isn't, it's not, it's a national dish, but it's a very British dish as well. Like, it was literally invented here. It wasn't invented in India. But like,
True.
you can absolutely use the flag, I think, as an internationalist symbol. Because nationalism is about we are better than others. That's all I care about. I think patriotism is a different thing. So you can, to me, this is what Britain means, and it is a melting pot. Look, I don't know. I mean, there's no silver bullet though, and some people are going to be up for it, some people won't. I don't care. You do you. I think that's what matters. I think it's more interesting to me to call out the fake patriots, and I think we need to start talking about foreign donations. Like, I think the left for a long time has failed on this and failed to grasp. And by the way, the entire mainstream media and powerful forces are against us. It's not it's not a level playing field. But I think the left has failed to grasp Tommy Robinson in a way that will just call him racist and far right, and that's it, right? If we don't say anything beyond that, no one's going to listen.
Exactly.
I made this analogy earlier, or example earlier. We get smeared as anti-Semites when we call out a genocide. So if you were to call right-wingers racist, they're going to respond in the way we get responded as being called anti-Semites, which is we're not. It doesn't mean anything. And they're starting to wear it as a badge of honor. So instead of just saying far-right racist, that's it, that's not going to work. I'm more interested in saying Tommy Robinson is a Zionist shill. The guy is taking money from Israel, right? He's a bitch. He's not a scary, powerful person. He's a little bitch. And I think that's how it's been very successful with Elon Musk's image. I mean, they've made him look pathetic. We need to make these people look pathetic. We need to make these people look like they're not in control, because really they're not. And actually, they are just vessels for powerful forces and the oligarchy. And in order to smash the oligarchs, you need to smash these right-wing movements because they're one and the same.
I was listening to newscasts today, and it was interesting because Lewis Goodall was talking about the fact that at the beginning of the year, we were all having conversations as to whether Elon Musk was going to be backing Nigel Farage. And now 9 months on, Elon Musk has made the decision to back Tommy Robinson as the person on the far right that he's going to support. It is also interesting, though, isn't it, how this didn't come about until after he basically had all ties cut with the White House after he fell out with Donald Trump, and then all of a sudden he's thought, oh well, I wasn't able to infiltrate American politics, so maybe I can infiltrate the UK instead.
Because he doesn't think Farage is right wing enough. He thinks he's too moderate. So
Well,
that's
I mean, in fairness to Nigel Farage, and you won't hear me saying this very often, he's not a fan of Stephen Lennon, and he actually hasn't. While he hasn't actively come out and condemned the march at the weekend, he also he wasn't there. There wasn't anyone from Reform UK.
yeah, but
I noticed on the stream though of the entire event was all the branding for Advance UK.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so I mean, even Reform want very little to do with Tommy
Yeah, but
Robinson.
I mean, I could be wrong, but my view is that it's not because they don't want anything to do with them. It's because they want to be the acceptable face of the right wing. They want to govern. So, look. I mean, look, people can be more radical and become moderate when they're older. I don't think that's the case with Nigel Farage. But if you've looked at the shit he used to do when he was younger, it's pretty far right. So, I'm of the persuasion that he probably doesn't disagree that much with Advance UK and Tommy Robinson, but he's always wanted to be in power. And let's be honest, Advance
Yeah.
UK can't win. And being a Tom, like most people still hate Tommy Robinson. That's absolutely true, despite the 150,000 people that turned up. So, like, it would be a vote killer for Reform
Listen,
to, be one of the same. So it's a political thing, a strategy
if
here.
if 150,000 people listen to political commentators and others standing on a stage at the weekend telling them that Nigel Farage is a grifter and not to vote for him and to vote Advance UK instead, you're not going to hear any complaints from me if it takes votes away from Reform. But I do understand. I think there will have been many people there who. In fact, I know there were people there who don't even like
Oh yeah,
Tommy Robinson, but they were there because they wanted to be there for whatever reason, like the lady that you shared the video of,
yep.
who probably isn't particularly right wing, but
She
she's
sounded
had
like an
enough.
activist.
But
Like, she
but
literally
so
sounded like
many people have had enough because
Mm.
we've had 14 years of Tory austerity, and then the Labour was supposed to be the magic bullet that came in and made everything better. And not only have they not made anything better, many people feel like they've made things worse. And that's why people are turning to Reform, which is why I'm hopeful that the Greens will pull through with Zach's leadership to give an alternative on the other side. But I think we've got a long fight ahead. I'm just really aware of time, so I'm going to whiz through a few. Just on women's safety, Phoebe said women's safety, the EDL was riddled with pedos. There's a list of them. About 105, I think, have been convicted of some sort of sex offence, and they all still follow Tommy R.
It doesn't surprise
That's
me.
always the case. Leo said as well, there has been so much violence towards brown people in the UK, and there is barely any coverage by the mainstream media.
Yeah.
In the last week, I personally went to 2 assaults requiring an ambulance due to severe injuries. Those people were attacked because of the colour of their skin alone. People are in tangible danger right now. And Leo actually said that one of those individuals was somebody that was out buying a pizza for the children, and somebody else was I think that he said it was a young woman, a child who had boiling water thrown at them. I think we're seeing. I'd be interested in a couple of months to see the statistics. You know how after the Brexit vote there was an increase in racially aggravated crimes and attacks. It'd be interesting to see whether the same thing is actually happening now in the crime data at this moment in time, because I think if we were to look at the data, I think it probably would be.
Such a scary time. Like, I've actually never once in my life felt frightened with a social climate before. See, now 27, I'm now quite scared sometimes just going through the streets. I'm thinking, like, what are people thinking of me? Do they think I'm even British? Which is such a sad thing to say. Like, but I think because of how insane the online world is sometimes, and then also you see the proliferation of certain voices, it does make you think, like, who else thinks like this? And I've been in conversations with very, very moderate, I do think moderate people who have criticisms about the number of people coming into the country. And they're saying it to me as a black woman. And it's why I deactivated my socials for a bit. I'm really quite tired of being told that I'm a pavement monkey, or that I'm the N word, or that I need to have the same fate as Charlie Kirk, or that I'm not British enough. Like, it just gets to a point where you're like, I don't know who you are. I don't know if I'm crossing you in the street. I don't know if I sit next to you in a traffic light stop. Like, it's just frightening. I think I centered myself quite entirely actually in that one. Apologies, but I do feel for anyone who is feeling that sort of way, because I think it is a really weird time.
No, don't apologise for putting your own experiences out there, Sarah. At the end of the day, do you know what I mean? I can walk down the street as a white cis heterosexual man without having to worry about people coming for me in the same way that you and Curtis can't. So you
Mm.
don't apologise for for putting your own experience up front. I mean, just on personal experiences. I mean, Curtis, how have you found things recently? Have you noticed an increase?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But um, look, it doesn't bother me too much. But people have different ways of dealing with it. Usually, I respond in laughter, and this is not me saying you should do the same. This is completely different to other people. But most of the comments are online. It's telling you to go home, the P word and stuff. And I'm like, well, it's for me, it's like these are just a bunch of losers online. I haven't seen, for me anyway, an increase in racism towards me. But that's also probably because I live in Leeds. I'm in the city, right? Maybe it's different. I was in a more of a whiter area or less multicultural area. I don't know. I would say though that for most of my life, I'm a light-skinned brown person, right? I am a Western-facing looking person. Even me being a brown person, I am also privileged because there are people, especially if you're a Muslim and you have you wearing the attire, you're going to be targeted. So I even understand that, like, I have it easier than other people. But I did think that during the race riots in 2020, there were literally just I saw a video. There's a black man just literally walking the street, and it was basically a pogrom. And that was the first time in my adult life where I was actually worried that someone was just going to attack me based on the way I looked. Not that it's anything new, but that was a time, not 2020. Sorry, it was only a couple of years ago, wasn't it? That I was certainly worried then.
I think I've definitely seen more posted. You're talking about online. Sangeeta Maiska's posted a few tweets over the last few days of some of the messages that she's got as well.
Isn't she?
And I mean, I'll be honest, some of them I wouldn't even feel comfortable reading out on our stream. Like some of the horrific things that people have sent to her, and I mean, of course, part of it's because, and I suppose it's the same with you two as well. Part of it's because we're political commentators and we're talking about these things and we're putting ourselves out there.
Yeah.
But there's also an element which is, absolutely based in race. Where I mean, you both receive messages that people wouldn't even think of sending to me, for example. So yeah, it's not a great place, and
Well,
we can
look, I mean,
just hope that it gets better.
I've had racist comments, but I've never been called a liberal though. So,
oh mate, that there's nothing that offends me more than someone
saying.
You're a liberal. I'm like me.
Yeah, honestly, you can call me a lot of things, but if you call me a fucking liberal, that hurts. That hurts a lot.
I've probably been called worse then, if that's the thing that we're going by.
Honestly, I completely relate.
Right, Victoria. Along with the nightmare on Reform Street today, I'm not in doubt at all about how high priority violence against women is. Bear in mind, they never send anyone to the debates in Parliament, do they? Reform when there's debates on this. Michael's asked, what's the point of reform? I thought they were an anti-establishment. Now they're just failed Tories. 60% now, and I appreciate there's only 5 of them. So I am, I'm doing that thing that we like to do, and I'm twisting the statistics. But 60% of reform MPs now are former Conservative politicians. 2 of them are former Conservative MPs, and obviously one of them was a Conservative mayor. So just remember that when you vote in reform. Ollie said, in fairness to all sides, Sultana defected from Labour without a by-election. That's true.
Yeah. But that was what I was saying earlier. I was like, we're all kind of hypocrites. Like I would not support a by-election because first and foremost, I care about political power, and the left has very little political power. So I don't care that someone calls me a hypocrite. Look, if a Tory did the same, like, yeah, fucking by-election. But we're all hypocrites in this.
We are.
I don't really care. I care about having political power on the left because there's hardly any compared to the other guys and compared to what we're up against.
Yeah.
This one here from Jamie talking about Diane Abbott. I've no idea how she hasn't slapped one of those pricks yet. Phoebe again has said Paul Ovenden was caught out already in Labour leaks in 2020, which is what you were talking about, Curtis. This stuff about Diane is so demeaning and shitty. And somebody else has pointed out, as you know, about the Ford report and the fact that all of this was already covered. We knew that all this shit was going on because the Ford report said that this was a systemic problem within the Labour Party. And Keir Starmer can't say he knew nothing about it because he commissioned the fucking thing. So it's, I think it's for me, this is another one of those stories that actually proves even further that Starmer isn't fit. I mean, he's just had to sack Mandelson because of him being a bad judge of character. He's clearly proven that he's learnt nothing from his own commissioned report into racism within the party, because the Ford report named Diane Abbott as one of those MPs who had been systematically abused from within the party. And what's happened? The exact same shitty behaviour aimed at the same MP has continued. So, if I had Keir Starmer on with me today, as well as a million other things I'd like to ask him on this story specifically, I'd be saying, well, what did he learn nothing from the Ford report? Like, what did he take from that? Because that highlighted this problem, and now someone's had to resign because of the same behaviour. Like, you've clearly not learned any lessons here. That saying that the governments like to use, lessons learned. I don't know if either of you wanted to say anything on that one quickly, but I've just got one
you
more
said it
before we
well.
wrap up, I think.
Yeah.
Flowsnake said that actually. Keith gonna pretend he didn't know this sort of stuff was going on. Well, I assume he read the Ford report, considering he commissioned it. But yeah, finally from Chimera, this made me laugh. Someone said on a No Justice stream that the adults in the room are starting to look like 3 kids in a trench coat, which I think is very fitting here.
I'd agree.
Yes, it's true. It's true. They're
agree.
clowns. It's a fucking clown show.
Bloody clowns. Let's play Snog Marry.
Oh,
Boy.
it's so embarrassing though. I feel secondhand
Disgusting.
embarrassment from that. Like, when you were going through the transcript, I felt it was so cringe.
It's cringe. It's cringeworthy. It's so disgusting. Oh God, he's going to think about that for the rest of his life, and he bloody better.
But finally, just a shout out to the Good Globalist for gifting 5 Turn Left memberships
Thank
as
you.
well while we were going through the comments.
Thank you so much.
Again, we really do appreciate all the support that you give us. And I won't do the spiel because I'm sure Sarah will do it before we finish. But thanks to both of you, and thanks for everyone for your
What
comments.
spiel? I don't know what spiel you're
I
talking
don't know
about.
if it's in your script.
Oh shit, I hope it is. Hope so. Yeah, it is. Thank you to our viewers who tuned in, and of course Curtis. No, I'm joking. Honestly, Curtis, you've been bloody amazing. Thank you so much. I love that you've joined me on Monday. I feel like our Friday energy is like top tier, and then Monday's like, fuck, we got a whole week to get through before we get to Friday.
Do you know what? It's nice being a guest now and again, and it's obviously we're a great duo. I love everyone at Turn Left, but we're a great duo.
We are. You heard it here. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Curtis. Honestly, it's been great. Very, very glad to have you on this wonderful, although dire Monday. It was very windy, so I actually almost got blown away when I was walking to my car. Pray for Sarah. That's all we have time for, though. Remember to like the stream, and if you're not a subscriber, then hit that button, please, and thank you. What do they say? Put the notification bell on if you want to see when we go live. If you want us to grow, then you can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support, and there is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. Ha! I practiced in the mirror. In terms of conditions apply, yeah. Thanks, Callum. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99 pence, but obviously don't put yourself out. Times are tough. I get it. I get it. But also, also. Be great to have you guys share and like. Anyways, thank you, and I'll see you guys on Friday with Curtis. Take care.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn Left.